The only rule aliens should never break. Earth is not yours to seize. Part 1. First Contact Gone Wrong. The Empire had conquered 17 star systems. They had taken planets without any real fight. Their warships were massive and dark. Their soldiers were tall and strong. When they arrived at a new world, the people there always gave up. It was always easy. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the blue planet on the screen. Earth, a small world with water and green land. His scouts had told him about the creatures living there. Humans, they called themselves. They had basic technology. They fought each other all the time. They would be easy to control. "Prepare the invasion fleet," ordered. His voice was cold and confident. "This world will fall before the next cycle." His officers moved quickly to obey. None of them questioned him. They had never lost. They did not know what losing felt like. On Earth, it was a quiet Tuesday morning in Seoul. The sky was clear and the sun was warm. People walked to work and students went to school. Everything was normal. Park was walking down the street near Tower. She was 34 years old and worked as a telecommunications engineer. Her job was to fix communication systems and make sure phone networks worked properly. It was not exciting work, but she was good at it. She was thinking about her morning meeting when a shadow fell across the street, stopped walking. She looked up at the sky. Something huge was blocking the sun. It was a ship, a massive ship, bigger than anything she had ever seen. It was dark gray and shaped like a curved blade. It made no sound as it floated above the city. Felt her heart start to beat faster. Around her, other people were stopping too. They pointed at the sky. Some took out their phones to take pictures. A few people laughed nervously. Someone said it must be a movie being filmed. Someone else said it was a military test. Then the ship spoke. A booming voice came from the vessel. It spoke in Korean, but the words sounded strange and mechanical, like a machine was trying to speak a human language. "People of this city, we are the Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to surrender. Do not resist. Resistance will result in death." The street went silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then screaming started. People began to run in all directions. Cars crashed into each other. Someone fell down and was stepped on, pressed herself against a building wall and tried to stay calm. Her hands were shaking. Her phone rang. It was her brother Park. "Where are you?" His voice was urgent but controlled. Had been in the Special Forces for 10 years before becoming a security consultant. He knew how to stay calm in dangerous situations. Near said, "What is happening?" "Ships," he said. "They're appearing everywhere. Seoul, New York, London, Beijing. It's happening all over the world at the same time." Aliens could not believe she was saying that word seriously. "Yes, real ones. Listen to me carefully. Go home, lock your door, stay away from windows. I'm coming to get you." "What are you going to do?" There was a pause on the phone. When spoke again, his voice was hard like steel. "They picked the wrong planet, little sister. Get somewhere safe. This is about to get ugly for them." He ended the call. Started moving through the panicked crowds. She kept her head down and walked quickly. Above her, more ships were arriving. She could see soldiers dropping down on cables. They were tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were large and black. They carried weapons that glowed with strange light. One of the alien soldiers landed in front of a group of running people. It raised its weapon and fired. A beam of light hit the ground and exploded. People flew through the air. "Stop running," the soldier shouted in that same mechanical voice. "Surrender now." Some people fell to their knees. They put their hands up. They begged for their lives. But not everyone. Saw an old man pick up a piece of broken metal from the ground. He walked toward the alien soldier. His back was straight and his eyes were angry. "This is our home," the old man said. "You have no right to be here." The soldier pointed its weapon at him. "Kneel or die." The old man did not kneel. He threw the metal at the soldier's face. It hit the alien's helmet with a loud clang. The soldier stumbled back in surprise. Other people saw this. They stopped running. Some of them picked up rocks and pieces of broken street. They started throwing things at the soldier. The soldier fired again and again. People fell, but more people came. They came from the shops and the buildings. They came with chairs and bottles and anything they could find. The soldier called for help. More soldiers came down from the ships. They used their weapons on the crowd. Many humans died. But they kept fighting. Watched from behind an overturned car. Her heart was pounding and her eyes were full of tears. She saw her neighbors dying in the street, but she also saw something else. She saw them fighting back. She saw them refusing to give up. They had expected easy surrender. They had expected fear and obedience. What they got was something very different. Across the world, the same thing was happening. In every city where the aliens landed, humans fought back. They used guns and knives and their bare hands. They died in huge numbers, but they did not stop. In Washington, the president gave a speech. "We will not surrender. We will not submit. This is our planet and we will defend it." In Moscow, soldiers fired rockets at the alien ships. Most rockets did nothing against the alien shields, but some got through. In Tokyo, the police organized a defense line. They held it for 3 hours before being overwhelmed. And in Seoul, a resistance was being born. That night met her brother at their parents' old house in the hills outside the city, had brought weapons and supplies. He had contacted other former soldiers. They were already making plans. "The government is gone," told her. "The Blue House was destroyed in the first hour. Most of our military bases have been hit, but that doesn't mean we're finished." Looked at her brother. "What can we do? They have ships and shields and weapons we can't match." Smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter. "They have technology, but we have something they don't understand. We have thousands of years of experience in fighting. War is in our blood. It's in our history. These aliens have conquered peaceful worlds that gave up without a fight. They've never faced anything like us." He spread a map on the table. Red marks showed alien positions. Blue marks showed places where humans were still fighting. "They control the cities," said, "but they can't be everywhere. We know this land. We know every hill, every tunnel, every building. We're going to make them pay for every meter they take." Looked at the map. She thought about her skills. She knew telecommunications. She knew how to build networks and send signals. "I can help," she said. "I can set up communication between resistance groups. If we can coordinate, we can be more effective." Nodded. "Good. We need everyone. Engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers. Everyone has something to contribute." Outside, they could see fires burning in Seoul. Alien ships patrolled the sky. The world had changed forever in a single day. But humanity was not defeated. It was angry. High Commander received his first reports that night. His officers told him about the resistance. They told him about the unexpected fighting. They told him about the casualties. "How many did we lose?" asked. 300 soldiers, Commander, and 2 light vessels were damaged." Was surprised. He had never lost 300 soldiers in a first-day invasion. Usually, the number was 0. "These humans are more aggressive than expected," one of his officers said. "They do not respond to fear like other species." Waved his hand. "They will learn, double the patrols, destroy any group that resists. They will surrender eventually. They all do." But even as he spoke, doubt touched his mind for the first time. There was something different about this world, something dangerous. He pushed the thought away. The Empire had never failed. It would not fail now. He was wrong. 3 weeks had passed since the aliens came. They controlled most of the major cities. Their ships flew over the streets day and night. Their soldiers walked through neighborhoods, checking houses and arresting anyone who looked suspicious. But they did not control everything. In the hills and forests and underground tunnels, humans were organizing. They were learning. They were preparing to fight back. Was 62 years old. Before the invasion, he had been a chemistry teacher at a high school inn. He had spent 30 years teaching students about molecules and reactions and chemical formulas. Now, he was using that knowledge in a different way. His laboratory was in the basement of an abandoned factory. The windows were covered with black cloth to hide the light. 10 people worked with him, mixing chemicals and building devices. "This batch is ready," said one of his helpers, a young woman named. She was a university student who had been studying medicine before the invasion. Now she was learning how to make explosives. Inspected the containers carefully. The liquid inside was pale yellow and smelled like cleaning products. It was made from things anyone could find in a regular home: bleach, fertilizer, battery acid, simple ingredients that became very dangerous when combined correctly. "Good work," said. "Distribute them to the cells. Tell them to wait for the signal." The resistance in had grown quickly. What started as small groups of angry people had become a network of fighters. They divided themselves into cells of 5 to 10 people. Each cell operated independently. If one cell was captured, they could not reveal the location of others because they simply did not know. Park had taught them this system. He had studied guerrilla warfare during his time in special forces. He knew how small groups could defeat much larger enemies if they were smart and patient. But the heart of the resistance was not in. It was in Seoul, where Sister had become something nobody expected. She had become a voice. Using her knowledge of telecommunications, had built a network of hidden radio transmitters. She had hacked into communication frequencies. She could send messages to resistance groups across the entire country without the aliens detecting her. Every night at midnight, her voice went out over secret channels. "This is the voice of Free Korea," she would say. "We are still here. We are still fighting. Do not give up hope." She gave instructions and shared information. She told resistance cells where the aliens were weak. She told them when supply convoys were coming. She told them how to make weapons and how to hide from patrols. And she told them stories. Stories of successful attacks. Stories of brave fighters. Stories that reminded people they were not alone. Sub-Commander was in charge of the occupation in Korea. He was a veteran of 12 planetary conquests. He had never failed to pacify a region. Until now. He sat in his command center and read the latest reports with growing frustration. A supply convoy had been attacked yesterday. 8 soldiers killed, all the supplies stolen. A patrol had walked into a building that exploded, killing 12 more. 3 communication towers had been destroyed in the night. "They are like insects," he said to his assistant. "You crush one and 10 more appear." "Perhaps we should use stronger methods," his assistant suggested. "Destroy entire neighborhoods, make examples of the population." Had tried that already. In the second week, he had ordered the destruction of a district where resistance fighters were hiding. 3,000 civilians had died. The result was not fear. The result was more fighters joining the resistance. "These creatures do not respond to punishment like others," said slowly. "When we hurt them, they get angrier. When we kill their families, they want revenge more. It is as if pain makes them stronger." He did not understand humans. He could not understand them. In his experience, every species eventually gave up when the cost became too high. They calculated the odds and decided survival was more important than pride. Humans did not calculate like that. They seemed to make decisions based on emotion, on anger, on pride, on something called honor that could not define. It made them unpredictable and dangerous. In Seoul was preparing for the biggest operation yet. Lieutenant had escaped from the naval base during the invasion. He was an intelligence officer who knew secrets about technology. He had studied the wreckage of crashed alien vessels and learned important things. Their walkers are their strongest ground weapons, explained to the resistance leaders. 8 legs, heavy armor, energy cannons. One walker can destroy an entire neighborhood. They were gathered in an old subway tunnel, 20 people, representing different resistance cells from across the city. Candles provided the only light. "How do we fight them?" asked. "We don't fight them directly," said. "We trap them. Their armor is strong, but it has weaknesses. The leg joints are less protected, and the power core on the back can overheat if damaged." He showed them diagrams he had drawn from memory. "Tomorrow, they are sending 12 walkers through downtown Seoul. They want to make a show of strength. They want to remind the people who is in control." Leaned forward. "Can we stop them?" "We can do more than stop them," said. "We can destroy them, all 12 of them." The plan was complicated but possible. They would need every cell to work together. They would need explosives, vehicles, and perfect timing. Many people would probably die. Nobody hesitated. "We're in," said an older man named Lee. He led a cell of factory workers from the industrial district. "My people are ready." "Same for us," said a woman named Han. She was a nurse who led a cell of medical workers. "We'll set up a field hospital for the wounded." One by one, every leader agreed. The operation was set for tomorrow at noon. That night could not sleep. She sat by the radio equipment and stared at the wall. So many people were counting on her to coordinate the attack. If she made a mistake, people would die. Found her there. "You should rest," he said. "I can't. I keep thinking about what might go wrong." Sat beside her. "Do you remember when we were kids, when Father taught us to swim in the river?" Smiled slightly. "I was so scared. The water was cold and dark. You almost drowned 3 times, but you kept trying. Eventually, you became the best swimmer in our school." "What's your point?" "My point is that you don't give up. You never have. That's why you're leading this resistance. Not because you're the strongest because you don't quit even when you're scared." Looked at her brother. "I'm very scared. These aliens have technology we can barely understand. They've conquered entire planets. What chance do we really have?" "Every chance," said firmly, "because they don't understand us. They think we're like the other species they've conquered, but we're not. We've been fighting for thousands of years. It's what we do. It's who we are." He stood up and put his hand on her shoulder. "Tomorrow we're going to show them that Earth is not theirs to take. Now get some sleep. You have a war to win." The next day at exactly noon, 12 walkers entered downtown Seoul. They marched in formation, their metal legs crushing cars and breaking through the street. Soldiers walked beside them, weapons ready. Commander watched from his command center. He smiled. This show of force would remind the humans that resistance was useless. Then the street exploded. The first blast came from beneath the ground. A tunnel had been dug under the road and filled with explosives. The lead walker stumbled and fell as the ground opened beneath it. Before they could react, more explosions hit from the buildings on both sides. Windows shattered outward as bombs went off. Fire and smoke filled the street. And then the humans came. They came from everywhere. From buildings, from tunnels, from hidden vehicles. They carried the weapons made by and his chemists. They threw bottles filled with burning liquid. They fired old guns and new ones taken from dead aliens. "All units coordinate through Channel 7, his voice said calmly over the Resistance radio network. "Group 3, target the third walker. Group 5, cover their retreat." The battle lasted 43 minutes. When it was over, 7 walkers were destroyed. 3 more were badly damaged. The remaining 2 retreated, covered by the surviving soldiers. They had never lost so many walkers in a single battle, ever. Stared at the destruction on his screen. His hands were shaking, not with anger but with something he had never felt before. Fear. He sent a message to High Commander that night. The message contained only 3 sentences. Request immediate reinforcement. The humans are not surrendering, they are hunting us. In the Resistance headquarters, people were cheering. They had won their first major victory. They had proven that they could be beaten. Stood apart watching her people celebrate. She was happy but also sad. 18 Resistance fighters had died today. Good people with families and dreams. Came to stand beside her. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. They'll send more forces. They'll hit back harder. I know, said, but now people believe we can win. That's worth everything. She looked at the celebrating crowd. Factory workers and students and grandparents, ordinary people who had become warriors. Today we showed them what humans are made of, she said. Tomorrow we show them again, and the day after that, until they leave our world or we destroy them completely. The resistance had ignited, and it would not be stopped. 6 months had passed since the invasion. The world had changed completely. They still controlled the major cities, but their control was weak. Every day, resistance fighters attacked their patrols. Every night, their supply convoys were raided. Every week, more of their soldiers died in ambushes and traps. High Commander stood on his flagship orbiting Earth. He looked down at the blue planet through the window. When he had first seen this world, he had thought it would be an easy conquest. Now he understood how wrong he had been. The latest casualty report, Commander, said one of his officers, handing him a data pad. Read the numbers. His face showed no emotion, but inside he felt sick. They had lost over 40,000 soldiers. That was more than in all their previous conquests combined. The situation was the same everywhere. In North America, resistance fighters controlled the Rocky Mountains and used them as bases for attacks. In South America, the jungle had become a death trap for patrols. In Europe, underground networks connected resistance cells across dozens of countries. And in Korea, where some of the fiercest fighting was happening, a scientist was about to change everything. Doctor was 45 years old. Before the invasion, she had been working at a research institute in. Her specialty was materials science. She studied how to make new kinds of materials with special properties. When the aliens came, she had escaped into the countryside with as much research equipment as she could carry. For months, she had hidden in an abandoned factory, studying pieces of technology that resistance fighters brought her. The aliens had one major advantage over humans: their personal shields. Every soldier wore a device that created an invisible barrier around their body. Human bullets and explosives could not penetrate these shields. The aliens could walk through gunfire without being hurt. That was why they were so confident. That was why they did not fear human weapons. Was determined to change that. She worked day and night, barely sleeping. Her assistants worried about her health, but she refused to rest. She tested hundreds of chemical combinations, looking for something that could disrupt the alien shields. One morning, as the sun was rising over the hills, she found it. I don't believe it, she whispered, staring at her test results. It actually works. Her assistant, a young man named Shin, looked up from his own work. What works? Held up a small container of dark liquid. When this compound touches a shield, it breaks down the energy pattern. The shield collapses. His eyes went wide. You're serious? I've tested it 15 times. The results are consistent. This compound neutralizes their shields. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They both understood what this meant. This greatest protection could be taken away. Human weapons would work against them again. The aliens could be killed, just like anyone else. Immediately contacted the resistance network. Within hours, Park and Park arrived at her hidden laboratory. Showed them the compound and explained how it worked. The shields use a specific energy frequency. This chemical compound disrupts that frequency. You can put it in bullets, in explosives, even in water bottles. When it contacts the shield fails. How long until you can make more? Asked. The ingredients are common, household chemicals mostly. Once I write the formula, anyone with basic chemistry knowledge can make it. Felt hope rising in her chest, real hope for the first time in months. This changes everything. They planned the first test for the following week. The battle of would prove whether the compound truly worked. Was a port city controlled by 200 soldiers. They had a strong garrison there because they used the port to bring in supplies. A resistance attack against such a well-defended position would normally be suicide. But with the compound, things were different. Led the attack force personally. 60 fighters, a mix of former soldiers and civilians who had been training for months. Their weapons had been modified to include the compound. Their explosives were laced with it. The battle began at dawn. The first patrol saw the humans coming and laughed. 60 humans against 200 shielded soldiers. It would be a massacre. Raised his rifle and fired. The bullet, coated with dark liquid, passed through the patrol leader's shield as if it was not there. The alien dropped dead. For a second everyone froze. They could not understand what had happened. Their shields never failed, ever. Then shouted, "Open fire." 60 rifles spoke at once. Soldiers, confident in their invincibility, fell like grass before a storm. Their shields flickered and died as the compound-laced bullets hit them. The aliens tried to run. They tried to call for help, but the resistance fighters were everywhere. They had spent months learning how to fight, how to move, how to kill. Now, with the shields gone, all that training paid off. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 180 soldiers were dead. Only 12 resistance fighters had fallen. The port was captured, along with all its supplies and equipment. Stood in the center of the garrison, looking at the alien bodies around him. He called his sister on the radio. "It works," he said. They're bleeding, and they're dying, just like us." Received the news with tears in her eyes. She immediately began sending the compound formula to every resistance cell on the planet. Within days, it was being manufactured in basements and garages all over the world. The tide of the war had turned. High Commander received reports of disasters from every front. In Africa, an entire battalion was wiped out when their shields failed. In Asia, resistance attacks suddenly became deadly instead of annoying. In Europe, commanders started refusing to lead patrols. "How is this possible?" demanded. "Our shields are supposed to be impenetrable." His scientists studied the problem and gave him bad news. The humans have developed a counter-technology, a chemical compound that disrupts our shield frequency. We cannot defend against it. Felt cold rage building inside him. These primitive creatures had done what no other species had ever managed. They had found a weakness in technology. "Then we will use methods that don't require shields," said slowly. "Prepare the orbital bombardment systems. If we cannot control this planet, we will burn it." His officers looked at each other nervously. Orbital bombardment was extreme. It meant killing millions of civilians. It meant destroying the resources they had come to take. "Commander," one officer said carefully, "if we destroy their cities, there will be nothing left to conquer." "I don't care about conquest anymore," replied. His voice was hard and cold. "I care about making an example. No species can be allowed to resist the Empire and survive. If we let these humans win, others will try to do the same." He gave the order. The bombardment would begin with the city of Mumbai. On Earth, the mood had changed from desperation to hope. Resistance fighters who had been hiding were now going on the offensive. Alien patrols that had walked through cities like they owned them were now targets. In Seoul, coordinated attacks across the entire peninsula. The compound had given them a real chance, and they were using every bit of it. Then the sky lit up. The bombardment of Mumbai killed 2 million people in a single afternoon. Beams of energy fell from space like the fists of an angry god. Buildings became dust. Streets became rivers of fire. An entire city was erased. The world watched in horror, saw the footage and felt her heart break. So many innocent people dead in an instant. Children, families, everyone gone. But alongside the horror, she felt something else. Anger, deep, burning, absolute anger. And she was not alone. Across the planet, the bombardment did not create fear. It created fury. People who had been neutral joined the resistance. Soldiers who had been holding back attacked with savage intensity. Scientists worked faster, harder, desperately looking for new weapons. They had made a terrible mistake. They thought destruction would break humanity's spirit. Instead, it united them like nothing else could. Doctor called an emergency meeting. "We need to take the fight to them," she said. "Their ships in orbit are the source of their power. If we can reach those ships, we can end this war." Looked at her. "How? We don't have spacecraft." Smiled grimly. "We do now. Every nation with a space program has been working together. They've been building ships in secret, using everything they know about technology. The first ones will be ready in 3 months. Leaned forward. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "Yes," replied. "We're going to take the war to space. We're going to attack their fleet. And we're going to show them that Earth is not theirs to take." The resistance leaders looked at each other. 3 months of fighting on the ground. 3 months of defending their world. And then an attack that no one had ever imagined. Humans going to war among the stars. It seemed impossible. But then again, everything they had done in the past 6 months had seemed impossible. Thought about the old man she had seen on the first day of the invasion. The one who had thrown metal at an alien soldier and started the resistance with a single act of defiance. "Let's do it," she said. "Let's show them what we're made of." The tide had turned. Now it was time to bring the storm. 3 months had passed since the bombardment of Mumbai. The world had used every second of that time to prepare. In secret locations across the planet, ships were being built. They were not beautiful or elegant like the vessels. They were ugly and rough, made from whatever materials were available. Steel from destroyed buildings, engines from crashed alien ships, weapons designed by scientists working day and night. But they were enough. They had to be. Admiral O looked at the fleet gathered in orbit around the moon. He was 58 years old, a career naval officer who had spent his life preparing for wars that never came. Now the biggest war in human history was here, and he was in command. "How many ships do we have?" he asked his aide. 47 combat vessels, Admiral, 12 supply ships, and 600 assault pods for boarding operations. Nodded slowly. The fleet orbiting Earth had over 200 ships. His forces were badly outnumbered. "It will have to be enough," he said. Standing beside him was Commander Shin. She was 34 years old, a former test pilot known for her skill and her fearlessness. Her entire family had died in the Mumbai bombardment. Her parents, her husband, her 2 young children, all gone in a flash of light. She had not cried when she heard the news. She had simply walked to the resistance headquarters and volunteered for the most dangerous mission available. "Are you ready?" asked her. His face was calm and cold. "I've been ready since the day they killed my family." The plan was simple in concept but difficult in execution. The human fleet would attack the formation directly. While the alien ships were busy fighting, assault teams would board the enemy flagship and capture or kill High Commander. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. No one cared. Addressed the entire fleet through the communication system. His voice was steady and clear. "Soldiers of Earth, today we do something no human has ever done. We go to war in space. We face an enemy that has conquered star systems, They have better technology, more ships, more experience." He paused. "But they do not have what we have. They do not have 10,000 years of fighting in our blood. They do not have the anger of a species that has been attacked in its own home. They do not have the memory of Mumbai, of Seoul, of every city they have burned and every person they have killed." Around the fleet, men and women listened. They were from every nation on Earth: Americans and Russians, Chinese and Europeans, Africans and Australians. For the first time in history, humanity was truly united. "They thought we were weak," continued. "They thought we would surrender. They were wrong. Today we show them their mistake. Today we take back our world." He took a deep breath. "All ships prepare for attack." The human fleet moved toward Earth, toward the Armada waiting in orbit. High Commander watched them come on his screen and felt confusion. "What are they doing?" he asked. "They have fewer ships. Their technology is inferior. This is suicide." "Perhaps they hope to negotiate surrender terms," his aide suggested. Shook his head. "No, I have studied these humans. They do not surrender. They fight until they die. But this makes no tactical sense." He gave orders to his fleet. "Form defensive positions. Let them come to us. We will destroy them easily." The ships arranged themselves in a wide formation, ready to unleash devastating fire on the approaching humans. They expected the primitive fleet to stay at a distance and try to trade shots. The humans did not do that. Instead, they charged straight into the formation at maximum speed. "What are they doing?" shouted. "They're coming right at us." Energy beams flashed across space. Human ships exploded, one after another. The weapons were deadly accurate. In the first minute, 8 human vessels were destroyed. But the rest kept coming. They flew directly into the middle of the fleet. At point-blank range, even primitive human weapons became effective. The ships fired everything they had, targeting engines and weapon systems. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. And then the boarding pods launched. 600 small vessels shot out from the human fleet. They targeted the largest ships, especially the flagship where High Commander was located. Each pod carried 10 Marines armed with doctor, compound, and weapons designed for close combat. Pod hit the flagship's outer hull with a crash. The Marines inside activated cutting tools and burned through the alien metal. Within seconds, they were inside. "All teams follow me," said through her helmet radio. "Target is the command bridge. Kill anything that gets in your way." The fighting inside the flagship was brutal and bloody. Soldiers, their shields useless against compound-coated weapons, fought with desperate intensity. But the human Marines had trained for this moment. They had practiced boarding tactics in simulators for months. Moved through the corridors like a ghost of death. She fired her rifle with perfect accuracy, dropping aliens with every shot. Her face showed no emotion. Her eyes showed no mercy. The battle in space continued as well. The human fleet was taking heavy losses. 23 ships destroyed, then 30, then 35. But they were losing too. Their formation was broken. Their ships were damaged. Some were even trying to retreat. Admiral commanded from his damaged bridge. Blood ran down his face from a head wound, but he refused to leave his post. "Concentrate fire on their capital ships," he ordered. "Keep them busy. Give the boarding teams time." Inside the flagship, and her team reached the command bridge. The door was locked and heavily armored. "Explosive charges," said. "Maximum yield." Her team placed bombs around the door frame. Everyone took cover. The explosion ripped the door apart and sent pieces of metal flying like bullets. Was the first through the opening. High Commander stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by his officers. He held a weapon in one hand and a control device in the other. "Stop," he shouted. "One more step and I activate the self-destruct. This ship will explode and take your entire fleet with it." Did not stop. She kept walking toward him. "I said stop. His voice was higher now, afraid. "Go ahead," said. Her voice was completely calm. "Destroy the ship. Kill me. Kill everyone here. It won't matter. More humans will come. They will keep coming until every one of you is dead. Because that's what we do. We don't give up. We don't stop. We don't surrender." She raised her rifle. "But before you push that button, I want you to know something. My name is Shin. My family lived in Mumbai, my parents. My husband, my daughter who was 4 years old, my son who was 2, you killed them. You burned them. You turned them into ash." Tears were running down her face now, but her voice did not shake. "This is for them." She fired twice. Both shots hit in the chest. He fell backward, the control device dropping from his hand. It clattered on the floor without activating. Walked over and picked it up. She looked at the display, then its dying face. "Earth was never yours to seize," she said. "You should have left us alone." Tried to speak, but only blood came from his mouth. His eyes went dim. He died looking up at a human face. Deactivated the self-destruct and broadcast a message to all ships. "This is Commander Shin of the Earth Defense Force. High Commander is dead. Your flagship is under human control. Surrender now or be destroyed." Outside, the battle stopped. The ships, leaderless and shocked, did not know what to do. One by one, they signaled their surrender. The Battle of Earth orbit was over. Humanity had won. On the surface, people looked up at the sky and watched flashes of light. They did not know what was happening, only that something important was going on above them. In Seoul, watched from a resistance command post. Her radio was tuned to military frequencies. When she heard its broadcast, she fell to her knees and cried. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Around her, resistance fighters hugged each other. They laughed and cried and shouted in joy. After months of fighting, hiding, and dying, they had won. Found his sister and pulled her into a tight embrace. "It's over," he said. "It's finally over." But knew it was not really over. The forces on the ground still had to be dealt with. The world still had to be rebuilt, and there might be other aliens out there watching. Still, for this moment, she allowed herself to feel victory, real victory. They had done the impossible. They had faced an empire that conquered star systems and beaten them. Humanity had proven that it could not be conquered. Admiral survived the battle, though barely. His ship was badly damaged and he had been wounded several times. As he was carried to a medical station, he saw the flagship, now flying a human flag made from a torn bed sheet. He smiled through bloody lips. "They really did it," he said to no one in particular. "The crazy soldiers actually took their ship." The victory was complete, but the message still needed to be sent. The galaxy needed to know what had happened here. They needed to know about the species that had refused to surrender. They needed to learn the only rule that should never be broken. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. In the weeks following the Battle of Earth orbit, the remaining forces on the ground surrendered one by one. Without support from space, without their commander, and without hope of reinforcement, they had no choice. Some tried to fight to the death. They were granted their wish. Others dropped their weapons and raised their hands. They were taken prisoner and treated fairly. Humans had learned enough about cruelty from the war. They did not need to add more. Park walked through the streets of Seoul for the first time in months. The city was damaged but not destroyed. Buildings had holes in them. Roads were cracked and broken, but people were coming back. They were cleaning up, rebuilding, starting over. She saw children playing in a park where a battle had been fought just weeks ago. They chased each other and laughed, their voices bright in the morning air. For them, the war was already becoming a memory. For it would never be a memory, it would always be real. She reached the old building where the resistance had first gathered. Now it was being turned into a museum, a place where future generations would learn about what had happened and what their ancestors had done. Inside she found and the others. the chemistry teacher who had made the first explosives, the intelligence officer who had discovered the Walker weaknesses, Han, the nurse who had saved hundreds of wounded fighters, Doctor, the scientist who had changed everything with her compound. They were all here to witness something important. A screen on the wall showed the United Nations building in New York, or rather, what was left of it. The original building had been destroyed in the invasion. Now they were meeting in a temporary structure nearby. Representatives from every nation were gathered there. They had come to witness the founding of a new organization, the United Earth Council. "This is historic," said quietly. "First time in human history that every nation has agreed on something." "It took aliens invading us to make it happen," replied with a dry smile. "Maybe we should thank them." Nobody laughed at that joke. It was too soon. On the screen, the ceremony was beginning. The first Secretary General of the United Earth Council was being announced. "By unanimous vote of all member nations," the speaker said, "the position of Secretary General is awarded to Park of Korea." Stared at the screen. Around her, her friends erupted in cheers, grabbed her in a hug. "They chose you," he said. "You're going to lead the world." "I didn't ask for this," said. Her voice was shaking. "I was just a telecommunications engineer." "You were the voice of the resistance," said. "You coordinated the fight across the entire planet. You kept hope alive when people wanted to give up. There is no one better qualified." Thought about refusing. She thought about saying she was not ready, not worthy, not brave enough. But then she remembered all the people who had died, all the fighters who had given everything so that humanity could survive. She could not let them down. "I'll do it," she said. "I'll do my best." 3 weeks later, she was sworn in as Secretary General in a ceremony watched by billions of people. She stood at a podium, looking out at a sea of faces from every country on Earth. "1 year ago," she began, "we were separate nations with separate interests. We fought each other over land, resources, and ideas. We thought our differences mattered more than our similarities." She paused. Then the came. They did not see nations. They did not see races or religions or politics. They saw one species, one enemy, one target. Her voice grew stronger. "And we showed them what that one species could do when united. We showed them that humans do not surrender. We showed them that Earth is not a prize to be taken. It is our home, and we will defend it against any threat." The audience applauded, waited for silence. "The war is over, but our work is not done. We must rebuild our cities. We must heal our wounded. We must remember our dead. And we must prepare." She looked directly into the cameras. "Because the galaxy is larger than we knew. There are other civilizations out there. Some may be peaceful, some may not. We cannot know what the future holds, but we can make sure that we are ready for whatever comes." She announced the creation of the Earth Defense Force, a unified military that would protect the planet. She announced new space programs that would build more ships and explore the stars. She announced scientific projects that would advance human technology by decades. And then she announced something else. "One more thing," she said. "We are going to send a message to every intelligent species in the galaxy, a message that will travel across the stars and reach anyone who might be watching." She nodded to a technician. Screens around the world showed a broadcast being prepared. The most powerful transmitters on Earth were linked together, pointed outward into the darkness of space. "Commander Shin will deliver this message," said. "She has earned that right." Stepped up to a microphone. She was wearing her military uniform, decorated with medals from the battle. Her face was calm, but her eyes held fire. "This is a message from humanity," she began. "From the planet Earth. From a species that was attacked without warning by the Empire." She paused to let her words sink in. "They came to our world. They demanded our surrender. They bombed our cities. They killed our people. They thought we were primitive. They thought we would be easy to conquer." Her voice hardened. "They were wrong. We fought back, we resisted, we adapted, and in the end we destroyed them. The Empire no longer exists. Their fleet is scattered, their commander is dead, their soldiers are our prisoners." She leaned closer to the microphone. "Let this serve as a warning to any civilization that might think of following their path. We are humanity. We did not start this war. We did not want this war. But when it came to our home, we finished it. We are willing to live in peace. We welcome friendship and trade with other species. We want to learn from you and share what we know. Come to us as friends and you will find us friendly. But come to us as enemies and you will find something else." Her eyes seemed to look through the camera, across the stars, directly at whoever might be listening. "You will find a species that has spent its entire existence at war. A species that has turned violence into an art form. A species that does not surrender, does not give up, and does not forget. Earth is not yours to seize. This is our home. Touch it at your peril." She stood. "This is the only rule that should never be broken. Remember it." The message ended. The transmitters sent it out into space at the speed of light. It would travel for years, decades, centuries. Eventually, it would reach other civilizations. Eventually, they would hear it. And they would remember. Years passed. Earth rebuilt and grew stronger. The scars of the invasion healed, though the memories remained. Monuments were built to honor the dead. History books were written about the war. Children learned about the brave people who had saved their world. Admiral retired to a small fishing village. He refused all offers of positions and honors. "I was just doing my job," he said. "The real heroes are the ones who didn't come back." Doctor continued her research. She trained new scientists and pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. Her compound was studied and improved, becoming the basis for new technologies that protected Earth. Park led the Earth Defense Force for 20 years. He built it from a small group of survivors into a powerful military that patrolled the solar system. When he finally retired, he joined his sister in her diplomatic work. And Park led the United Earth Council through its early years. She was re-elected 3 times. Under her leadership, humanity became a true spacefaring civilization. Colonies spread to Mars, to the moons of Jupiter, to distant stations among the asteroids. When she finally stepped down, she was 83 years old. She gave one last speech to the council. "When I was young," she said, "I was just an ordinary person. I fixed phone lines and went to work and lived a small life. I never imagined I would help lead a war. I never imagined I would stand here, speaking to all of humanity." She smiled. "But I learned something during those terrible months. I learned that there are no ordinary people. Everyone has strength inside them. Everyone can be a hero when the moment demands it. The invasion showed us what we are capable of when we stand together." She looked at the new generation of leaders, young men and women who had been children during the war. "Never forget what we accomplished. Never forget what we sacrificed. And never forget the rule we taught the galaxy." Her voice was old now, but still clear. "Earth is not for taking. We are humanity, and we will always fight for our home." The message had reached its first alien civilization 23 years after the war ended. The species that received it was considering expansion into new territories. They had been looking at a certain blue planet on the galaxy's edge. After hearing the message, they changed their plans. Other species received it over the following centuries. Some were aggressive. Some had empires like the. All of them heard the warning. All of them learned about what had happened to the aliens who had tried to conquer Earth. None of them ever made the same mistake. The rule spread across the galaxy like a law of nature. It was taught in alien schools and discussed in alien councils. It became legend, then fact, then common knowledge. Do not attack Earth. Do not threaten humanity. Do not test their resolve. Because the humans are not like other species. They do not surrender, they do not forget, and they do not lose. Earth is not yours to seize. This is the only rule that should never be broken.